Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to And She Thrive, which serves to hold space for Muslim divorced women. Today we have Lama Aboubakr with us, who is a certified mindset life coach. Lama uses cognitive psychology-based techniques to help people become aware of the thoughts that may hold them back from achieving their goals. She helps enable her clients to develop and adopt the skill to self-master their own lives. Her passion is to liberate Muslim minds from the un-Islamic socialization and expectations set forth by institutions and society to enable Muslims to live their lives with intention. So Lama has been a coach for 5 years now, and she herself has gone through a tremendous journey of, you could say, struggle and pain and growth, which led her to become a coach. And she is married and based in Austin, Texas. Assalamu alaikum, Lama. Welcome. How are you today?
Walaikum salam, Sumaya. I'm great. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, we are so grateful to have you here. So the first question, which of course is at the forefront of all of our hearts and minds during this time, is that there are so many people who are really struggling emotionally, unable to process the tremendous pain that they are feeling given the gross injustices that are happening in Gaza. And we are all feeling this wound that's festering and bleeding, and and people just don't know how to handle it. Do you have any advice about that?
Yeah, for sure. Bismillah. So the first thing I always just like to say is when we think of our people in Palestine, yes, they're suffering, and yes, they're going through all this. And when we forget the actual, where they're actually going and how lucky they are that they get to leave this world, guaranteed 100% that they're going to Jannah. Knowing that 100% with certainty is what keeps me going throughout the day. Just like knowing like this is their guaranteed Jannah, and we're the ones that are sitting here in the comfort of our houses that are going to be questioned for every little thing that we did, of how we spent our time. And just the uncertainty of not knowing if we're going to Jannah or not is to me is it's so much more stressful, right? So I just want to start off with that, is knowing that may Allah protect and like grant them the highest ranks of Jannah. And we know it's possible. It's 100% guaranteed. And so knowing that part is one part. The second part is when we're talking about our feelings, how are we feeling towards that? Of course, we're going to grieve. We're going to feel sad. And then there's layers of guilt and shame on top of that we can just question if it's serving us to feel this way. So the way that's labeled is like, I like to label it as like, and I learned this from my own, I can't remember which book I got this from, but it's like clean and dirty pain. So there's clean pain, which is like human emotions like sadness, just grieving and like missing, or just like feeling of loss. That's like a clean pain. Dirty pain is more of like guilt, shame, just intense feelings that kind of drag you down, that drain the way you're feeling throughout the day. And we just have to ask ourselves, is it serving us to feel guilty? How is it serving us right now when we're feeling guilty? Does it help our brothers and sisters in Palestine? Does it make us does it help the people around us? Because I know if I were feeling guilty, I would not be able to help anyone. Like I would just be struggling the whole day, and I wouldn't be able to work at all. And so I always like to clean up those thoughts and allow yourself to feel sad and still function, knowing that, okay, I can feel sad and I'm really grieving it. And every time I feel sad, I'm just going to make dua. I'm going to make dua, and I'm going to make the most powerful, most intentional dua I can every time I feel sad. And I know that is my way of helping, is feeling sad. And when that guilt creeps in, I'll remember the guilt only creeps in because we're having the thought like, oh, I can't help them because I have it better than them and I can't help them, which is true. But at the same time, they're in a better place, like where they're going, like on the ultimate, they're in the better place and they're struggling right now. And what we can do at this moment is, Ya Allah, help them in the most powerful way you can. And that's what we can focus on. And so that's what I like to focus on, is just cleaning up those thoughts and lessening the guilt and increasing more of the grief and sadness and just feeling it, like allowing yourself to feel that sadness.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for mentioning that. I was thinking about how even though we all know that they are shuhada and that they are guaranteed paradise, I guess that we also, things that we struggle with, like as mothers, when you see the children suffering, is but then I heard something on Instagram, was it yesterday, of a woman narrating how she saw her, maybe you've heard this, the child approaching her, literally approaching her.
Yeah.
In front of her, she saw her child being blown up into pieces. And afterwards, she was just, I think she was concerned about the pain that the child had felt, even though she knew where her child was. And then she had a dream, right? And I think that she asked, did it hurt? And he said it was just like a pinch, and he was in paradise. He was in Jannah, right?
Yeah.
And when I heard that, it just made me very emotional, but it granted me ease that perhaps, it is just like a pinch, But so you're saying to just be more strategic about the way that our thoughts are going. Don't let it just become like an avalanche, and then it leads to a very low vibrational emotions that, as you say, are pretty much paralyzing. There's no faida, there's no benefit in that, right?
Right. And the paralyzing thoughts is the shame and the guilt, the intensity of that, which will stop us from functioning, which, it's just not helpful at this time.
Right. So the previous interviewee that I spoke to a few days ago, she mentioned that we should draw inspiration from the Palestinians' courage, and use that as an impetus for our own growth and our own resilience.
Yeah. It's
almost linked to what you had said before, that by being overcome with this emotion, it's almost like a giving up posture. It's okay. And then we've already lost the battle. Like it's what Shaitan wants, right? So any ideas of how we can, any thoughts on that? Like how do we draw from their courage and strength to make ourselves the best versions that we could be? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the way I use it is like the people are dying in Palestine, and we can use that as a form of it's dawah to say like, look, like even though they're dying, we're going to stand up and do the best that we can to show how strong we are as Muslims. And we are not going to just like fall into hopelessness and just not get out. We know there's an ultimate return to Allah, and we know that for 100% certainty. And when people see that around us, subhanAllah, the clients that I've been talking to, there I have a couple other people that aren't really strong in their faith, and then all of a sudden they like, it's just reignited, that their faith is just like, oh, now I see it. Now I see the point of Islam. And Allah's wisdom is maybe it takes like this amount of people to die for us to actually wake up and see, wait, our faith is really the source of how to fill our void that we've been trying to fill it with other things. And now we know, okay, we can use this to benefit our dunya and our akhirah and to get closer to Allah. And so, because there's two ways we can use this. We can use this in sitting in guilt and shame for the rest of our days here, or we can be like, okay, there's a really good reason this is happening, and I'm going to find what it is, and I'm going to use it to benefit myself and benefit other people around me. And
right. So now, as a departure point, because I hear you talk about this a lot in your workshops and things about becoming the best version of yourself. Can we discuss that? What does that look like? What does it mean? And I know that's a very broad topic, but yeah, let's see how we can.
Yes. Yeah. I really strongly believe that when you become the spouse that you want to be married to, you will have the best marriage you can have. And you won't be depending on the other spouse to make sure, like, are they acting right so that I can feel good? Because when I'm showing up and I'm leading the way and I'm the spouse that I've always dreamed of being with, they actually, I lead by example. They start kind of, it just feels so much more cleaner and easier and smoother, rather than hoping that they will change their ways and hoping that they will feel like they will make me feel better. When I focus on that for myself and I fill my own cup, they'll learn how to fill their own cup, and we're all both just joining our cups together.
And I guess this also extends to, even if a person is not going to get married, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because our whole intention of living in this life, right? Why is it? Is to worship Allah, to become the best version of we can be, to become like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to get as close as we can to his characteristics, and that requires jihad and nafs, like just overcoming our egos, our thoughts, and all of this, and learning how would Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam answer in these kind of scenarios, and that requires extreme self-awareness, extreme like emotional intelligence, and like, that's just being that is not, you're not doing it for the people, you're doing it for yourself. You feel so much better and so much more empowered to handle any circumstance that comes your way. And just knowing alone that no matter what happens, you know how to handle it emotionally, you're on top of the world.
So what does that look like?
What does that look like?
And I'm asking this because I know that you've been through the same process yourself, so from personal experience, if we can just dissect, what was it like to clean out all the bad stuff and to make oneself resilient, more of the best version of ourselves? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I'll actually give you an example, right? So when I first got married, I had a lot of expectations of how marriage should be. I thought like, a man should act this way, and he should be a lot like just whatever the Hollywood subconscious version of whatever marriage is, that was in my head. Right. So if I had built the ability, the skill to recognize my thoughts that are creating how I feel. So let's say, I'm trying to think of an easy example here, but let's say I tell him to take out the trash. Okay. And he didn't take it out because he was busy or something. But my mind immediately went to, he doesn't care. He doesn't listen to care. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't listen to me. That's the thought that came up for me. Now, if I didn't have the self-awareness, I would just act on it and go up to him and yell at him. Why don't you care about me? Right? Why don't you take out the trash? What's wrong with you? Then that creates an argument and a lot of conflict. He's confused because he's like, this has nothing to do with me caring about you. But then it just goes back and forth. And with time, I start building resentment because I'm believing all these thoughts like, oh, look, he didn't do this. He didn't do that. He didn't do this. He doesn't care about me. Now, what it looks like to be more in the best version of yourself is, okay, I noticed he didn't take out the trash. What does that actually mean? It just means he didn't take out the trash. It doesn't mean anything about me. Okay. And then maybe he just needs a reminder, right? I'm going to go remind him. Hey, honey, can you take out the trash? Okay. Yep. Okay. Now, this is just like a small example, but this applies to everything during the whole relationship. What are you interpreting his actions to be like when it comes in regards to you? And so when you don't catch those thoughts in the moment, you will start acting on it, and you will kind of act from the ego, which is the ego just wants to feel good and feel like important and prioritized. So anytime those thoughts come up and I don't recognize them, I'm going to act on them, and it's just going to create like conflict, right? And so that does not mean that I don't act on it sometimes. There are moments where I'm going to have those thoughts and I'm going to act, crazy sometimes. But at the same time, I take responsibility knowing that those thoughts are coming from me and it's not actually from him. I'm going to allow myself to be mad and be whatever. And and then I'm going to communicate how I'm feeling and thinking. Which brings me to my second point. If you're not self-aware, communication is super hard, because when someone says there's they have trouble communicating, they don't have the safety they need to learn how to communicate. And the safety means that like some people don't communicate what's on their mind because they're worried that the other person's going to reject them. And so what we do as when you're the best version of yourself is you create the safety for yourself. Now, what does that look like? Now, I'm going to communicate, like, let's say I have something on my mind that I really want to tell him. I'll say it. And in my mind, I'm going to be like, no matter how he reacts, I'm going to have my back. I'm going to be proud of myself for saying what's on my mind, no matter how he responds. Because his response doesn't dictate how I feel. I dictate how I feel. And like that in and of itself is a process, right? You have to practice and do it over and over again. And being in a relationship brings all of that out. Like you start really getting tested from all the things that come up.
I mean, that makes sense. I'm just thinking that, like, how does that work? Because if somebody comes back with like something that's, accusatory or defensive, then to really be resilient, that's an amazing skill to cultivate. I'm wondering, does it come with time or?
Yeah. So it does. The first step is building the awareness of your thoughts, like taking, and the ways to do it. First one is like journaling out, like journaling. What are you thinking? What does this circumstance make you feel? And creating a habit of developing the skill of being the watcher of your brain rather than being in your brain. Like watching your brain as if like, okay, what is my brain going through right now? It's just there's a lot of thoughts happening. And so to develop that skill, you have to kind of take yourself out of yourself and watch yourself from third person. And I think a book I can recommend there to help understand this part it's called The Power of Now. It's not an Islamic book, but it's a book that helps explain like that, how to like just pause your thoughts and understand what is happening. And so becoming the watcher of your mind so that you're not in the drama of your head, like, okay, like when things get intense. And when things do get intense, you have to kind of create a protocol. Okay, like I'm going to step out and let me just like cool down and understand what my thoughts are, and then come back and communicate it, right? And so the how is a process of showing up. Okay, this thing triggered me. What was I thinking? What was I feeling? How did I act when I felt this way? Okay, yep, now I see. I'm the one who caused this, like taking responsibility for what happened. Now, I want to do a little side note, because when it comes to emotional abuse or like, intense abuse, most people sometimes take the other side of taking too much responsibility and blaming themselves. And this is not what we're talking about here. I'm talking about a normal, healthy relationship. Because usually if you're someone who's married to a narcissist and you're more of an empathic person, you're going to want to blame yourself and think it's your fault, and it's not your fault. So that's just a whole other topic. I just want to put a side note out there. But this is what I'm talking about right now is just more for healthy relationships.
Okay.
So and I even when I talk to single people who are usually really struggling with finding a spouse, or even like thinking about it, or they feel like something's missing, it's usually because they're not working towards becoming the best version of themselves. They're just waiting for someone else to complete that, like that part of them, right? So
like a knight in shining armor is going to come and make everything.
yes, everything will feel better. Everything will feel better once they get married. And it's
I'll
like,
become the best version of myself when he comes.
yes, then and only then I'll become the best version of myself. And it's like, no, that's the output. That is the really, it's a trap. So don't do that. So I always even say that if you are feeling like miserable and single, most likely you are going to feel miserable and married if you do get into marriage. So why do we become the best version of ourselves when we're single is because that helps us just feel better about our lives, just feels exciting. Like, wow, like I have a whole life that I can look forward to. I don't need anyone to actually complete that for me. It's just I have that, and I know how to just feel good, and I know how to manage my emotions, and not needing to depend on anyone is very empowering. And it takes away any sort of like, if there's any desperateness to get married, it takes that away. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll find a man when I want to, kind of feeling. And you just feel so much more just relaxed, I think, is how I like to put it. Like relaxed as in like I feel sufficient. I feel complete because I'm the one, and Allah's completing my cup, and I'm it's a direct correlation between you and God, and you know how to manage your emotions, and you're not depending on another whole nother human to do it too. So why do we become the best version of ourselves? Because what's the point of even like, why are we even alive? Let's just ask that question first. Why are we alive? Okay, we know the answer is to worship Allah. How do we worship Allah? We worship Allah and be in striving to become the best version of ourselves, and And with every step that you take with doing that, you literally kind of unlock a whole level within yourself, and you're evolving as a human being. And who wouldn't want that? Right? Who wouldn't want that? And when you evolve and when you become that version of yourself, you actually attract people who are in the same caliber as you, who are also working towards becoming the best version of themselves. And it's a good time. Let me just start there.
Yeah, I've heard that like when you work on yourself and you become more fulfilled and self-resourced in a way, then your frequency is high. So you kind of, whether it's other friends or like people of the same gender, whether it's a spouse, potential spouse, you just attract a whole different category of people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you become magnetic in a way.
Yes. Yeah. Because when you walk in, when someone walks in the room and you can tell they're confident and like they look happy, like you just want to talk to them. You're like, whoa, like what's going on there? Versus someone going in be like, oh, I hate my life and I just need to get married and everything's depressing. It's like, it's not really it's not attractive. So it really depends on how you carry yourself and how you feel towards yourself.
Okay. So when it comes to like navigating negative emotions, do you have like an advice about how to go through that toolkit? Like to have that toolkit that, okay, I'm having a really crappy day today. I can feel that I'm very negative right now in my body. Is a specific like system that you recommend people utilize to get out of that funk?
Yes. Yeah. So there's two things I can cover here, but there's like the nervous system regulation part, right? So that's one thing, but also just normal pain, human pain that we go through. Anything like sadness or just like disappointment or any sort of feelings like that. What I always the problem here that people struggle with negative emotion is they don't want to feel it. Like they just want to resist it and like move on and distract themselves from anything just so that we don't feel the disappointment of the normal disappointments in life that comes up. And so the worst thing that can happen to us as a human being is a feeling, like a vibration in our body. So anytime we're avoiding or doing something is for the sake of feeling a feeling or avoiding a feeling. And when we're avoiding a feeling, it kind of with time compiles. Like it just feels like, okay, you're avoiding this feeling and you're not taking the time to actually sit in it and feel disappointed and allow the disappointment to be there. And so when we learn the skill of how can I sit in negative emotion and allow yourself to feel negative emotion, you won't feel afraid of it. And what is negative emotion actually? So let's say anxiety. Anxiety is just more of like a little spinning thing in the middle of my chest, and like my heart rate just races a little bit. Okay, just feeling anxiety. I'm not dying. It just feels uncomfortable, right? And when I just allow myself to feel that anxiety, it eventually will pass. But what people hear me say is, okay, yeah, but I've been feeling the anxiety for a long time and it's not going away, because you're thinking, I have anxiety, something's wrong. I just need to make this anxiety go away. When you have the agenda of trying to make the feeling go away, it doesn't go away. You have to kind of allow it without any agenda of making it go away. It's just there. Like, right? Sometimes I wake up and I feel intense like anxiety, and I just wake up and like, okay, today I'm going to feel anxiety. It's like carrying a really big, heavy backpack on the back of your, on your back and just throughout the day. But you're kind of labeling the feeling first. First, you got to label the feeling. Okay, I'm feeling anxiety. And even if it's hard to label it, you can just describe it in your chest. Okay, it's just this thing. I don't know what it is, like this tightness over here. What's it like to feel anxiety as a human being? Like if someone were to inject you with anxiety, and it's not a problem, we're just injecting you, and I'm asking you the question, what's it like to feel anxiety? You just describe it to me. Oh yeah, it feels like this spinning feeling in my chest, and it's not that comfortable because I just feel myself kind of sweating a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how I feel anxiety. And then that's it. You kind of, that's how you process the feeling. And it can help, you can help train yourself with that by, you know, talking to a coach or a therapist that can help you learn how to process that. But we don't have to eliminate the feeling. And that's what we were kind of taught growing up. We weren't taught how to sit with the negative feeling. We're taught to like, how do we feel better now? And in this society where everything just is so much easier to just feel better now, it's not helpful to actually sit with yourself and process that feeling. And so that's one aspect of it, right? How to actually sit with the feelings. And I'm talking about heartbreak, disappointment, anxiety, things like that. Sometimes you just got to sit with it. And then other times, when your nervous system is dysregulated, it can feel really hard to function. And to tell if your like nervous system is dysregulated is just, you find it really hard to just stand, like to focus. You're just so in your head. You're just so like, it's just, it doesn't feel good, right? It's just, so, I was going to explain what the regulating nervous system is, but to give a quick summary, there's the cognitive part of your brain, and then talking like on a cognitive level, it can feel helpful, but when your nervous system is dysregulated, it'll feel much harder to understand. So to regulate your nervous system, first of all, you have to have like kind of a list, a protocol of self-care of what to do when you're feeling a certain way. And so when let's say I wake up and I notice myself feeling like really just tired and sluggish and just I don't want to do anything, my protocol is I have to go out for a walk. I have to force myself to go out. And then when I go out, okay, my body realizes, okay, everything's fine. And then I go back in and I feel better. It's different for everyone, right? So you have to find what it is for you that helps you calm you down. And so your job is to create a small list of things that help you regulate yourself, help you feel better, whatever it is. And it's something that you like find enjoyable, and not like a task that you have to do, more of like something that's enjoyable. And that helps you just like kind of regulate yourself.
You might have to force yourself, because like you might not feel like going for a walk right now, but you
Right.
know if you do it, it's really going to make you feel better. So you
Right.
have to give yourself the push. It's like, geez, I would rather just be in bed and like moan and complain to myself.
Yeah. And that's why sometimes a walk is not good for everyone, because maybe that's too hard for people. So what is it for you? Is it like sometimes for me, when I'm really tired, I have to like get up and just do like 60 seconds of jumping jacks just to get my heart rate like going up again, to wake myself up, right? But I was saying I did record a video on YouTube of like tools to regulate your nervous system. And it's just like really quick ways of how to regulate yourself when you're feeling really triggered in the moment, right? So like one example, I could just give one example right now, is it's something called bilateral stimulation, where you kind of and there's many methods of this, but you kind of if you're watching, you kind of do this and you kind of go one hand to the next. And what this does is kind of calms down the brain. It's even hard talking as I'm doing it, because it calms down that part of your brain that's really intensely triggered. And so it just like, there's the science behind it. You can Google it, but if you Google
of EMDR therapy.
I'm sorry?
EMDR therapy.
Yes.
I don't know what it stands for, but it's linked to the brain, exactly, and calming the limbic system in some way. And then you either use eye movement, rapid eye movement, which simulates when you're in sleep. And if you can't do that, then they said if you just want to be calm, so you're outside, you just go sit in your car or something, and then you think about like a very amazing thought of where you feel very safe, very safe, serene. And then as you're thinking about it, you just tap. Yeah, that's pretty much what you're saying. Same thing.
Yeah. So there's a lot of videos out there, and I have a video there too, and I just uploaded a couple of days ago. So
I'll link that for people who'd like to see that.
For sure. Yeah. So there's a bunch of ways to feel negative emotion, but ultimately, and just kind of understanding what a feeling is, so people aren't afraid of it. It's really just things in your body. It's just muscles like tensing up in your body, and that's pretty much it. Like, it's nothing to be afraid of. But when we don't know that, our brain reacts in a way where it's like, oh my gosh, we're feeling this thing, we have to get rid of it now. And kind of like, that's where we kind of spiral into more of a harder feeling to get out of later.
Okay. Now, for many women out there, whether they are just freshly divorced or whether they are outside in the Muslim dating field looking for a spouse, the whole range, people are struggling with a lot of maybe self-loathing, self-love issues, feelings of feeling worthy, all of that. What do you say about that?
Yeah. I have I'm thinking, because there is a lot to say on that, but where I would like to start is for someone to understand what they're currently thinking about yourself. An exercise I would like for people to do is just writing out who do you think you are, like who are you, right? And be very honest with yourself, like even all the negative parts of yourself too, like I am this, I'm not that pretty, I'm not good enough. Like what comes out? Like what are your thoughts that comes out? So the first thing you have to start with is understanding what is the story you're telling yourself about yourself. And the way to do that is to write out everything that's on your mind about who you are. You have to write it out. You have to. People don't do this part, right? You have to take a piece of paper and write out as everything that you think you know about yourself. I am not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. What is it? What are those thoughts? And literally dump it onto paper. And sometimes that can be a bunch of pages that come out. And you put all the negative and positive. You don't have to, and just don't let as you're writing, don't let yourself stop. Like just this, like let it flow. Okay, I am this, I am that, I am this, I am that. And the way to see what your self-image is this is exactly what your self-image is, whatever that story is. And to work on your self-image is just literally challenging each one of those thoughts. Like, let's say one of your thoughts is, I'm not good enough. Okay, that's one of your thoughts. Is it true that you're not good enough? How do we know you're not good enough? Well, we could argue that you're not good. We're never good enough, like, because society standards is just always moving and changing. So we're never good enough according to society. So we can agree there. But am I good enough in the sight of Allah? I think so, because if you have a human soul and Allah has chosen you to exist on this earth, then that means I am good enough. Like my soul is worthy enough to exist in this world, and it has a purpose and it has meaning, and there's a reason I'm in this world. So what is the truth of I'm not good enough? Maybe that's not even a thing. Like maybe that's just what does that even mean? I'm not good enough. So maybe it just means, okay, I'm a human being that is trying my best, and I don't know if I'm good enough or not, but like, who cares? No one cares if you're good enough, honestly. It's only us care. We care. It's our ego. So, okay, like each single thought, you just kind of have to challenge it. I'm not pretty enough. Okay, that's another thought. Is it true that there will be men out there that don't think you're pretty? Yes. Is it true that there will be men out there, at least one man out there that does think you're pretty? Yes. So what's the truth here? Even if it's true that some people, I'm pretty to some, and I'm not pretty to some people, right? So it's just more, you have to kind of get more neutral with the way you're thinking about it rather than extreme negative. And we're not trying to go all the way positive too, because that can be hard, especially if you're thinking really negative thoughts about yourself. And so again, self-image is literally just as simply as what is the thoughts you're telling yourself about yourself. That's what self-image is. And it's just beliefs. Each single thought creates how you feel about yourself. And subhanAllah, especially as Muslim women, we have a lot of shame about who we are. Like just shame about like something's wrong with us in some way. And it does not help to be.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think, what makes you say that?
I think especially because we grew up with a lot of like fear-based Islam, some of us are, that we're kind of punished with like, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong. So subconsciously our mind starts picking up this voice of like, something's wrong with us. And that's what shame is. Something's wrong with me. I'm not this enough. I'm not like whatever. And that's what creates shame. And so all we have to do as adults now is unlearn all those voices that we grew up with and see the Islamic perspective of how women are in Islam, which is very empowering. If we actually study the woman in Islam and study how they carry themselves, there is no shame. There is no, like, when I say shame, I mean the feeling of something is wrong with me, right? There's a difference between shame and hayat. Hayat is different. Talking about shame, about like, something's wrong with me, like what's wrong with me, like that kind of feeling is very degrading and like down on yourself.
Like I am inherently flawed. There's something
Yes.
fundamentally wrong with me.
Yes. Yep. There's something wrong with me. There's a reason I'm not going to get married again, because why would they? And and even if someone does like me, they don't see it. They're being tricked into like they have a lot of stories about themselves of they're just not worthy of being loved because something's wrong with them. And it's first of all just admitting like, okay, we all have it in some way, and we just have to eliminate it. We just have to be aware, not eliminate it, sorry, but be aware of it and watch when it kind of takes over, because it's not a good feeling. It just feels like a stuck feeling that like this is just who I am, and I'm just flawed, and there's nothing about it. And that's like, we just have to bring the awareness to that, right? And so going back to my main point of like, how to heal your self-image is under writing out all your thoughts and intentionally choosing how you want to think about yourself, because at the end of the day, it's all just thoughts, and you get to choose how you want to think about it, about yourself.
Okay. Now I've heard you mention about how the obstacle is the way. And I heard from somebody else it's a highly recommended book. When you speak about it, is it based on the book?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Tell us a bit about that. What is
Yeah. So in any process really, but I'm gonna focus more on the finding the spouse process. When you set a goal to find a spouse, we have to expect that there will be obstacles along the way, and seeing it that every obstacle is the thing that's going to help me climb up to the next step of becoming the best version of myself. Okay. Some people see the obstacles, when you don't understand this concept, people see these obstacles like, oh, I just got rejected again, and that just means I'm never going to get married. Versus if you see it as the obstacle is the way, I just got rejected again, and now I'm one step closer to finding my person. Like, or I just got rejected, and I notice every time I get rejected, I have these intense feelings of shame, and that is an opportunity for me to work on, so that the next time I get rejected, I don't feel this intense shame again.
So the obstacle is highlighting what your area of growth needs to be on.
Yes. Yeah. It's absolutely necessary to have obstacles so that you can figure out what you need to work on. And those obstacles are going to train yourself to become the wife or the husband that you need to be in the marriage, so that you can have a sustainable, healthy marriage. Like, if let's say as you're finding a spouse, one of the obstacles is, I don't know where to find my person. Like, that's the problem. Like, the obstacle is, I don't know where I can find them. Then that's the next thing you have to work on. Getting creative. What do I need to do? Put on your problem solving hat. What do I need to do to find my spouse? What does it look like? If I was selling a product, and my problem is I don't know where to find my customers, I need to get creative. I need to go out there and advertise, go to this, and keep trying. And then if my mind tells me I've tried too much and it's too exhausting, why is it exhausting? Oh, it's because I'm having these really draining thoughts about myself that no one's ever going to love me. So that's why I'm feeling drained. It's not the actual process. It's always the negative thoughts about the process. The process, and I like to make this crystal clear. The process is never draining. It's your thoughts about the process that makes things draining and exhausting. How do we know this? Because there are people out there who see the dating process as an adventurous, like amazing, fun thing. It's like, oh my God, I get to meet people, and I get to find out like all the triggers that come up with me, and I get to like work on them, and it's just going to be a good time. Like, I don't see the downside of this. And then there's other people who are like, oh, I have to go out there again and start from square one. And like even me saying it out loud feels draining when you have that perspective.
Well, I think that the latter group, it's also because people invest emotionally and they get excited and they get disappointed. And
Right,
that
right.
it's the letdown. Like
Yes,
doing
yeah.
that much the heart can take, you know?
Yes, yeah, yeah. But I also that there's mhm. When you're in the growth mindset, you know you know this disappointment's going to come every time you talk to someone like, oh, I thought that was going to work. The exhausting part is when you're stuck in disappointment and making it mean something bigger than it is. Like, oh, that was disappointing. I thought we would work out. And you know what? I'm just gonna that's not written for me. And alhamdulillah, and you process that disappointment and you move on. Versus when it gets exhausting and your heart can't handle it, is because you're stuck in disappointment and you're making it mean something bigger than it is. That's what creates it to be more exhausting, the process to be more exhausting. So
by processing, you mean like sitting with those negative emotions, like you mentioned?
yes, yeah, yeah. And when you're resisting those emotions, that's what feels tiring. It feels tiring to just like trying to push it down and be like, okay, I'm disappointed, but I have to move on. But like you're not really like processing, okay, that sucked. That was like going back to the growth mindset part. That sucked. I thought we had something going on here, but turns out we didn't. And I'm sure Allah has a better plan for me. And like genuinely like feeling that. And also letting yourself feel like that disappointment, sadness, but not indulging in it to the point where like, what's wrong with me? And like, there's a reason. Why is this never working out for me? And it works out for everyone else, but not me. And this is just thoughts I know I hear from people, but like, you see, like that's the draining part. And we have to clean all of that up and have more of that clean pain that I was talking about in the beginning, where it's like, all right, this sucks, but I'm just gonna I'm gonna let myself grieve for a day or two, and I'm gonna get up and get out there again, because I'm not gonna let this affect me like that.
I've heard you mention that the things that are your source of pain can be your source of peace.
Yes. What I mean by that is when something, and where that came from for me, I used to have a really painful relationship with my family, right? Like when I say painful, I just meant like, it's not, I expected a lot more support and love and just like the average American family that you see on TV. Like, why is it not like that? Why is my family not like that? Right. So that creates a lot of pain. Right. So my source of pain was when, let's say a certain family member doesn't act the way that you want them to act towards you. And when you don't have a managed mind and you just let those expectations get to you, it can feel really painful. Versus when that source of pain, when you see it as a source of like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to clean up my mind, to see how I can think about this differently so I can create a better relationship. And I'm going to bring up the example with my sisters. I didn't have the best relationship with my sisters. I was the very like the mother figure. I would just try to like boss them around, and it would just feel like a lot of tension. Right. And so it was really painful for me to do that. And so when I cleaned up my mind and I realized, you know what, I'm just going to show up with love and peace and like, just like love them exactly how they are, love them without trying to change them, without trying to like judge them. That for me created a lot of peace, and it created a very loving, peaceful relationship. And at the beginning, it was my source of pain, but now it feels so much more loving and caring. And I needed that pain to discover the peace that I was looking for. I needed that pain to bring it out. Like, oh, I noticed that I'm really controlling and obsessive over other people's actions. What can I do to make it better? And so I had to change the way I thought about things, and then that became so much more easier, and it feels more peaceful to be in relationships with, right? So that's what I meant by, so yeah.
Saying that the pain draws attention again to what you need to work on in yourself.
Yes.
The situation. Okay.
Yeah. And you need the pain to show you so that you can get the peace. Because if everything was peaceful, you don't know what to work on. Like everything just we're all just, you have to find those that painful spots to figure out what is the thing that's blocking you from your joy. And it's usually a set of thoughts and behaviors that you have not worked on. And sometimes it requires a whole heartbreak to get through it, to figure it out.
But I guess that's how one becomes more self-refined and cultivated. That's how growth happens, right?
Yes. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like I know a couple, I have a couple clients that got divorced, but also got remarried, alhamdulillah. And one of them I'm thinking of, like, she had a really terrible divorce and it was really painful, but that pain brought up a lot of like opportunities for her to literally transform how she feels and thinks about herself. She's a whole different person from before she got married, right? She a whole different person. Her confidence is on a different level. And she needed that pain, kind of like the slap in the face wake up call, to wake up and be like, okay, actually, let me work on myself. And now she feels more at peace with herself. And she needed that heartbreak to get through it and find her next person. And this is just more of a message for the women who feel like if there's no point, there's no, like, when you're divorced, that's actually the greatest wisdom you can get from that, is because you're actually in a marriage and you're in a relationship and you see how the pain points of what happened, and you can use that to grow. And that is, I think, the most empowering ways to see it.
Right. So are there any books or resources that you recommend? You did mention the Power of Now, but anything else to enable the women to utilize the skills that you've just mentioned today?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of books, but I'm going to start with just one, which is the Healing the Emptiness by Yasmin Mujahid. And I just want to, like, have people start there, because I am noticing, like, we need more of the divine perspective and understanding what is it that we need to fill our void and that emptiness with. And we do need to fill it with just training our brain to see things differently, like in the spot. So, like, and I love that book because she gives really good you know, I don't know, have you read it before, or no? Okay. Yeah, it's a good starting point to learning how to heal the emptiness inside of us, and going from there, inshallah. So starting with that, I would start there.
Okay, thank you so much. I will definitely be giving information to our community, and I hope that they reach out to you and that we can have subsequent conversations about this, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah.
Thank you, Lama. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.